Hola clase, hoy vamos a aprender sobre el subjuntivo cuando usamos el subjuntivo. Primero vamos a hablar sobre la idea de usar el subjuntivo con deseos y influencia. With wishes and desires, we're going to talk about using the subjunctive tense. Okay, so first thing I want you to do when you see a sentence written that you're thinking might be in the subjunctive is ask yourself two questions. Primero, is this certain? Is this a fact? We talked about the indicative tense always referring to when the subject or the speaker knows that what they are saying or what has happened, they believe that to be a fact. So that is the first question. And the second question is, did the subject of the sentence change? So, if we look at my sentence here, I wish that you clean the house. Is this certain? Is it certain that you are going to clean the house? Do I know you are going to clean the house? No, I don't. So therefore, that's a key that we're going to use the subjunctive because it is a wish or a desire that we are expressing that somebody else does. The second question, did the subject change? We started with our subject being I in the sentence. I wish, and then it changes to you. I wish that you clean the house. So is it certain? No. Did our subject change? Yes. So that means we're going to use the subjunctive. So, in español, la frase es, yo deseo que tú limpies la casa. Primero el sujeto yo, después la palabra que está entre las dos partes de la frase, que, y el otro sujeto. So first we have the subject yo, then we have our connecting word que, which I told you guys to watch out for, and then our subject change, tú. After our subject change, that's where our verb comes in the subjunctive tense. So our sentence turns into yo deseo que tú limpies la casa. Ok, clase, yo tengo otro ejemplo para practicar el subjuntivo. Okay, another example here. Our sentence is, she prefers that we eat in the kitchen. So the first question we have to ask is the speaker certain that this activity is going to happen? Is she certain that we are going to eat in the kitchen? No, she's just expressing a wish or a desire. She's trying to influence us to eat in a specific room. So no, it is not certain. The second question we have to ask ourselves about the subjunctive is there a subject change in our sentence? She prefers that we. So yes, there is a subject change in our sentence. So we are going to use the subjunctive. Okay, aquí es la frase en español. Ella prefiere que nosotros cenemos en la cocina. Okay, so our subject change happens in Spanish too. First our subject is ella, and then after our connecting word que, it's nosotros. And then after nosotros, then that second clause in our sentence, that's where we have our verb in the subjunctive form. Ella prefiere que nosotros cenemos en la cocina. She prefers that we eat in the kitchen. Eat dinner specifically. But que is the word. That is our important word that comes between the two clauses. The first is the main clause of the sentence that expresses the main subject and verb, or expresses who the speaker is. The second is the dependent clause, and the dependent clause depends on the main clause. So she prefers that we eat dinner in the kitchen. So que is our connecting word between the two clauses. Okay, tengo un ejemplo más. I have one more example for us. So our sentence is, you recommend that I buy a car. The first question we ask ourselves is what? Is it certain? Are you certain that I'm going to buy a car just because you recommend it? No, just because it's a recommendation doesn't mean it's going to happen. So that's our first hint that it's going to be in the subjunctive tense. The second question we have to ask is, does the subject change? You recommend that I buy a car. Yes, the subject changes. So we are going to use the subjunctive in this sentence. So our first main clause is tú recomiendas. You recommend. Our main clause is going to be connected by our connecting word, which is what? Que. Our connecting word is que. Tú recomiendas que, and then our subject change, yo compré, which is our verb in the subjunctive tense, un carro. Tú recomiendas que yo compré un carro. So that's our sentence in español usando el subjuntivo. So there's our sentence using the subjunctive in Spanish. Remember, the first subject and verb is our speaker. They are the one doing the wish, making the recommendation, trying to influence. So that is going to be conjugated just in the regular present tense like you are used to doing. You recommend. Boom. There's our connecting word K, which is going to signal that our subjunctive is going to be used next after our subject. Boom. Yo, our subject change. Then, as soon as our subject changes, that is the verb that we conjugate for the subjunctive tense. So that is the action that we are not certain is going to happen. We're not certain that I'm going to buy a car just because you recommend it. So remember, the second subject in our sentence is going to be the one that gets the subjunctive form of the verb. Aquí yo tengo un ejemplo de una frase que contiene pronombres directos. So this one has a direct object pronoun in it, which might make it a little bit more difficult to figure out who should be the person that has the verb changed for the subjunctive form. So my sentence is, Te sugiero que hables en español. I suggest that you speak in Spanish. So even though I don't have the tú in there for the subject, this te that you see right here, te represents tú. So we see that sugiero is conjugated in the present tense, regular. That's going to be our first subject. Yo sugiero. And then our second subject is hinted at by the pronoun te, which stands for tú. So we still see our connecting word K in between the two parts of the sentence. So that verb afterwards, even if it doesn't have a subject right before it, is still going to be conjugated in the subjunctive form. Te sugiero que hables en español. I suggest that you speak in Spanish. Sometimes it's hard to decide if you're supposed to use the subjunctive or not. So I have two sentences here. We're going to use the verb ir in both of these sentences, but now we're going to have to decide which one uses the subjunctive tense. So the first sentence is, I prefer to go to the movie theater. So that's what that translates to in English. The second one translates to, I prefer that we go to the movie theater. Only one of these sentences uses the subjunctive tense. So I want you to think about the two questions that I told you to ask, and I want you to fill in these blanks, write these down on your note sheet. With the first sentence, what form of ir would you put in there? Or for the second one, what form of ir would you put in there? And then make sure you put a big S circled next to the sentence that you did use the subjunctive in, and we'll talk about this in class. So sometimes it's the infinitive. Just because the verb's here doesn't mean you have to change it for a subject. So think about that. One of these is going to have ir as the infinitive form, and the other one is going to have the subjunctive form. Which one would you choose? Please make sure you have these written down on your note sheet. Ok, ahora vamos a hablar sobre el subjuntivo con expresiones impersonales. We're going to talk about the subjunctive tense used with impersonal expressions. So I have three impersonal expressions listed here. Es importante que, es mejor que, es necesario que. Literally translated, it's important that, it's better that, and it's necessary that. So they are called impersonal expressions because they don't have a specific subject. It's a general phrase that starts with it is important, it is better, it is necessary. It's not saying I think it's important, or you think it's important, or you think it's better that. There's no subject, so it's not a personalized expression. It's very vague. So a lot of these are going to trigger the subjunctive tense. So I will show you how we're going to use those with the subjunctive next. Aquí tengo dos frases similares, pero muy diferentes. La primera frase dice, es importante la basura. La segunda dice, es importante que tú la basura. So the first one is, we want to say, it's important to take out the garbage. In our second sentence, we want it to say, it's important that you take out the garbage. So one of these sentences is going to have the verb sacar, which is to take out, in the infinitive form. And one of them is going to have it in the subjunctive form. So I want you to think about what you already know about the subjunctive, about how we use the subjunctive when we're trying to make a statement or a wish or influence someone else to do something different, to do something that we want them to. We are saying that someone should do something, but we're not sure that they will. It's not a certain fact that they're going to do it just because we ask them to or tell them they should or think we tell them it's important. But with impersonal expressions, when you're making a very general statement without pointing to a specific subject, that means that we're going to use the infinitive form of the verb. So, for our first sentence here, es importante la basura. It's important to take out the garbage. We're not telling someone specifically to take out the garbage. We're not saying it's important for you to take out the garbage or for me to take out the garbage. We're just using a general phrase. So in the first sentence, we are going to use the infinitive form of the verb sacar, which is sacar. Es importante sacar la basura. It's important to take out the garbage. Second sentence, es importante que tú la basura. It's important that you take out the garbage. So here we see our word que. That word que is very important. And we also see that we are saying that there's a specific subject that is involved with this activity. It's important that you take out the garbage. So we're not saying, we don't know that you will take out the garbage. Just because I say it's important doesn't mean you're going to do it. So it is uncertain. But we're saying that you will take out the garbage. So it's going to be saques. Es importante que tú saques la basura. It's important that you take out the garbage. So here is a simple formula that'll hopefully help you remember how to put together a sentence using the subjunctive, or when you'll use the subjunctive, how to pick it out. So first we have subject one, verb, and that verb is usually going to be in the present tense when you're using the present subjunctive, plus que, our all-important connecting word, plus our second subject, make sure there's a subject change, and then our verb in the subjunctive tense. So there's a short little formula that'll hopefully help you guys know when to use the subjunctive and how to put it together. Now that we've talked about when we're going to use the subjunctive, especially with verbs of will and influence, tenemos un repaso. Primero, las dos preguntas. Las dos preguntas. So please write down the two questions that I told you that are going to be very important to ask when deciding whether or not to use the subjunctive tense. The two questions. Número dos, el indicativo versus el subjuntivo. The indicative tense versus the subjunctive tense. So what I would like you to write down here is how the speaker views the actions in the indicative tense versus in the subjunctive tense. And if you're confused on this one, you can look back in our notes packet that I handed out to you, and that should be able to help you out as well. There are two different feelings or moods in between the two different moods and tenses. Y finalmente, cómo formar verbos en el subjuntivo. So how do we form verbs in the subjunctive tense? So write down the steps that you should take to write these verbs in the subjunctive tense. I'll give you a hint. The first part of this, or the first step, is go to the yo form. Remember why that's so important, because many of the verbs have irregular yo forms, so we need to make sure we go to the yo form first before adding on our endings. So write down the steps to form verbs in the subjunctive tense. Make sure you bring your note sheet back to class completely filled out. You will be getting credit for doing so, and then we will review it in class to make sure everyone has the right information down. Gracias y hasta luego.